cross-section of the New England of today and yesterday is the area of a few square miles lying between the foothills of the White Mountains and New Hampshire's 18 miles of seacoast. Here in typical New England communities, bearing old English names like Dover and Durham, Stratham and Hampton, Exeter and Portsmouth, are contained all the varied elements which make up New England itself. Seat of Rockingham County is the 300-year-old town of Exeter, population 5,500, and since 1783, the home of famed Phillips Exeter Academy. Apart from the academy, the principal employment of the town comes from its few factories, most of them small. But the Y Shoe Company employs 350, has a weekly payroll of $8,500. And Hervey Kent's cotton mill hires 334 hands and pays them about $7,500 every Saturday. Most of the employees have worked for the Kents for many years. They have no union and there has never been any labor trouble. Hervey Kent is considered Exeter's most substantial citizen. He lives in a big remodeled house just outside the town limits, a house which people say cost him more than $50,000. But his widowed mother, Mrs. Adelaide Kent, still lives in the old Victorian house on Front Street where Hervey was brought up. Mother Kent is over 70 years old, but she seldom misses a town meeting and keeps a close watch on how Exeter's selectmen spend the taxpayers' money. The Exeter Banking Company, deposits $3.5 million, net assets $4 million, is also controlled by the Kents. Hervey is a large stockholder in the town's weekly newspaper, the 110-year-old Exeter Newsletter, circulation 4,000. It was taken over by a group of Exeter men in 1938, after the death of well-loved old John Templeton, for 60 years its owner and editor. Its publisher today is a smart young newspaperman from Boston, 33-year-old Harry B. Thayer, Jr., who gets a pretty good salary, plus a share of the paper's modest profits. Running the town of Exeter is its board of 3 selectmen: Charlie Russell, 76, retired grocer; Bob Sawyer, 44, manager of the Farm Service Bureau; and John Larry, 49, proprietor of the Higgins Ice Cream Company. Exeter's police force has 3 regular patrolmen and 3 special officers, besides the chief. The lockup, with 3 cells and a pen, can accommodate up to 18. But in Exeter's 300 years, there have been few major crimes. Only 7 known homicides, the last in 1924. The chief, Tom Chrysler, is a firm believer in modern methods of crime detection and a great admirer of the FBI. The chief was one of the first in New Hampshire to make use of fingerprinting in photography. The fire department, organized in 1798, has 5 pieces of modern apparatus, a force of 29 volunteers and 2 permanent firemen. Not counting calls to save cats and dogs and to pull boys out of the Squamscott River, the department answered 20 bell alarms and 105 still alarms last year. Pride of Exonians is their 80-bed modern hospital, which generous townspeople have endowed with close to $2 million. Exeter people are great readers. Of the 1,000-odd families in the town, at least 800 have cards and regularly take out books from the public library. Miss Goodwin, the librarian, has a long waiting list for the most popular titles. Exeter's young people are better educated than the average. Of those who graduate from the Boys' High School and the Robinson Female Seminary, from 75 to 90% go on to college. oldest business establishment in town is Kimball's, where Exeter has been buying its hardware since 1770. Haley's Market has been in the same family for 103 years. Its present proprietor, Ed Haley, is a grandson of the founder. Generations of Exeter boys have hung out in front of Seward's drugstore. Mr. Seward himself has been filling prescriptions for over 50 years. More than any physician in town, he knows all the ailments of Exeter's families.
Gordon, you tell your father not to take this all at once, like he did before. The directions are on the bottle.
At Seward's soda fountain, installed 50 years ago as an experiment, an ice cream sundae is known as a college ice. Bottled soda pop is called tonic. Across the street is Frank Young's barber shop. For 30 years, a clearinghouse for up-to-the-minute happenings. On the second floor of the newsletter building are the law offices of Exeter's first and best-loved citizen, 84-year-old Judge Henry A. Shute, lawyer and wit, author of the famed Ploopy Shute stories, tales of his boyhood years in Exeter, when his one ambition was to play in the town band. With his 73-year-old younger brother, Ned, Judge Shute swaps many a yarn of Exeter's old days.
But before we could do one thing, Templeton grabbed that chap with the nape of the neck, the seat of his trousers, raised him right over his head, and went down those 2 flights of stairs and threw that fellow into the middle of the street.
Yes, he was an old-fashioned codger, all right. I remember he once told me, he said, Ned, he said, I can forgive a man for beating his wife, but never for splitting the Republican ticket.
Life in Exeter is not exciting by big city standards, but it is full and pleasant all the year round. Though winters are long, they don't seem so severe as years ago. In the town, there are half a dozen fraternal organizations with a big membership, and hardly a week passes without some sort of a social.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Not many people in town can afford to go south, but there are hundreds who wouldn't miss a winter in Exeter, even if they could afford it. For early in March comes town meeting, the most important civic event of the year.
First, to choose by ballot and plurality vote a town clerk. Second, to choose by ballot and plurality vote one select man for 3 years.
Winter or summer, time passes as quickly in Exeter as anywhere else. From the earliest days of the movies, there has been a picture theater in town. Townspeople go fairly regularly, and Fred Markey, the manager, knows everyone's likes and dislikes. Across the Squamscott River on J.D. Hill is the Country Club. Annual dues, $20. Nearby is the Sportsman's Club, oldest trap shooting club in the U.S. Women of the town of Exeter keep busy with community enterprises. This year, the Garden Club is campaigning for roadside conservation and billboard regulation.
If 38 states can pass laws regulating the hideous and unsightly billboards that ruin the countrysides and make the highways unsafe, we are not going to have billboards in beautiful New Hampshire.
Ever since Exeter was founded, a large part of the community life has centered around its churches. Largest and oldest of the town's 7 parishes is the First Congregational, whose meeting house dates from 1798. Its 33-year-old preacher is the Reverend Paul Martin, who was called to Exeter 5 years ago from Wareham, Massachusetts. Sundays in Exeter mean not only church for the grown-ups, but Sunday school for the children. At least once a month, there is a church supper somewhere in town. For 35 cents, ticket holders can feast on the best New England home cooking. From late spring until early fall, the 100-year-old Exeter Brass Band gives a concert every Tuesday night in the square in front of Town Hall. And for 60 years, the Exeter boy who was Ploopy Shute, with true Yankee perseverance, has been annually re-fulfilling his youthful ambition to play in the town band.